Once again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 3 minutes past 7. I think we can start. When I think of Pan-Africanism, I think of Nelson Mandela, I think of Robert Mugabe, I think of Kakoma, Julius Nyerere, Steve Biko, Desmond Tutu, and I think of Kwame Nkrumah. One might be tempted to say that they are the founding fathers of Pan-Africanism. But what exactly is Pan-Africanism? One might say it is a movement and ideology that encourages the solidarity of Africans worldwide. One might also say that it is a belief that African people, both on the continent and in the diaspora, share not merely a common history, but a common destiny. This evening, Define Your Voice Network has brought together 4 panelists to discuss Pan-Africanism. What can we learn from the past mistakes, and what is the way forward? The goal of Define Your Voice Network is to build a proactive and problem-solving mindset among the African youth. Tonight's panel discussion is brought to you by Shake Solutions. My name is Stanley Mlenga, and I have zoomed in from Blantyre, Malawi. Tonight, we have a very Pan-African panel, and panelists are reminded not to switch off their cameras and to switch off the mics when they're talking. I will call out the panelists and they will introduce themselves. From Zambia, we have Kutemba Kakoma. Kutemba Kakoma. Kutemba, are you online? Can you kindly introduce yourself? Well, apparently, seems that she's not online. From Malawi, we have Chanju Phiri. Chanju Phiri.
Hi, I don't know if you can see me, but hi.
Chanju. Oh, Kutemba.
Yeah, hi, good evening, Stanley.
Good evening. Kindly introduce yourself, Kutemba.
Hi, everybody. Good evening, everyone. This is Kutemba, representing Zambia. Stay glued, and as we discuss Pan-Africanism. I hope you enjoy the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kutemba. From Malawi, we have Chanju Phiri. Chanju, kindly introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. This is Chanju, as Stanley has already mentioned. I'm zooming from Malawi, Blantyre. It's a pleasure to be here and to share an experience of being an African and share the dream of Pan-Africanism with each and every one of you. So looking forward to having a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chanju. We lost you there for a minute. And from Eswatini, we've got Zito Mbowa. I do not know if Zito is in Eswatini or he's in the US. So is it good evening or good morning or good afternoon? Zito. Zito, your mic you are muted.
My bad. Yeah, good. It's evening. I'm in Eswatini, so I'm pretty close to where you are. Zito Mbowa, everybody in Manzini, Eswatini. I hope you enjoyed the dialogue. It's a very needed conversation, especially seeing what's happening in the southern region lately among young folks. I mean, as we're speaking, things are happening in this country. So looking forward to it. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Zito. And from Zimbabwe, we have Tatenda Zimba. Tatenda, good evening. Kindly introduce yourself.
Stanley. Thank you, Stanley, for handing over the platform to me. Good evening to everybody. Thank you so much for having me tonight. My name is Tatenda Dzvimbo, and I am from Zimbabwe. I'm currently in the United States right now pursuing my studies. I am very much looking forward to this conversation. I'm excited to learn from the panelists, to also engage in the conversations that, you know, our awesome audience might have for us. So I'm looking forward to tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So we're going to start the ball rolling with Pan-Africanism. What is Pan-Africanism? Zimbabwe has a rich history with Pan-Africanism. When we think of Robert Mugabe, we think of Pan-Africanism. In your own words, Tatenda, what is Pan-Africanism and how do you understand and perceive it? In 3 minutes, briefly.
All right, thank you once again, Stanley. So this is a very interesting and very broad topic. I kind of had to revisit my research again just to make sure I'm understanding the concept as a whole and not, interpreting it from what I've heard in conversation or different perspectives from different students or professors alike. So what I came to understand is that Pan-Africanism embodies what we call unity, unifying the African continent to achieve what we call political, economic independence, right? And that has been very open to interpretation and that has been very subjective as per country and how different cultures and different people have embraced it. So from my understanding, just from how it was founded and how this movement has been capitulated by the different people from different regions and whatnot, it has mainly been to unify Africa, to make it a continent that is unified and that stands out on the global market, that is recognized for its cultural diversity, for its richness in resources. And not only that, but to make sure that it's empowering its people, giving them the economic independence that that they deserve, and improving their social economic status as well, and to make them recognizable on the global market. So all of this, in my understanding, has just been essentially the spirit of Ubuntu. I think that's how I took it, that unifying everybody, being our brother's keeper, regardless of me being from Southern Africa or from Western Africa, we are one, and we all want the same thing, which is to see Africa thrive. And how this is to be achieved by the member states of our lovely continent has been very subjective and is yet to be discussed in this panel and how we see it. So in an essence, I see Pan-Africanism as unifying the Africans both on the continent and in the diaspora to bring forth economic and political independence, growth, and sustainability on our continent. So with that, I hand over the floor back to you, Stanley.
Thank you very much, Tatenda. Her definition of Pan-Africanism is unifying Africans both in Africa and in the diaspora. Secondly, who are we going to pick? Let's see. Zambia, Kutemba. So when Kenneth Kaunda died, the BBC described Kaunda as a true Pan-Africanist. Kutemba, what is your understanding of Pan-Africanism? In 3 minutes, what is your definition of Pan-Africanism? It seems we've lost Kutemba. Chanju, your former President Hastings Kamuzu Banda, described himself as the destroyer of the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland, and he claimed he was a Pan-Africanist. So in your own understanding and in your own words, how do you understand Pan-Africanism? Chanju, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Stanley. I think Tatenda has preempted a lot, but in my own understanding, Pan-African is hinging on the term unity, whereby our forefathers, after slave trade and colonialism, the thought of bringing back the people together. So it's a tool, or it's a movement whereby we are trying to make everyone remember our origin, where we're coming from, and that is Africa, that we are all the same, we are all one, and we're supposed to sit under one roof, which is called Africa, with similar beliefs, arts, where we can convert that into maybe trade, have a free flow in terms of cross-border businesses, and doing a lot of things together as Africans. So I just wanted to add on top of what Tatenda had already how she had already defined Pan-African, that it's more of a political movement that was started in the early 1900s and has been evolving over time to, until today. So briefly, that's how I can define Pan-Africanism.
Thank you very much, Chanju. Chanju has defined Pan-Africanism as unity between Africans, a political movement. Sorry, thank you very much, Chanju, for your definition. You've defined Pan-Africanism as unity between Africans, a political movement which brings economic freedom and freedom for Africans. Thank you very much. I've seen that the house is loaded. Good evening to all our audiences. Apologies. Thank you very much for joining us. You'll be given a slot later where you can ask questions. Now, Zito, Eswatini, Swaziland, those guys did a very good job in assisting South Africa with the fight against apartheid. They are considered true Pan-Africanists. They did a good job assisting South Africa. And you guys got independence 26 years before South Africa. What is your definition of Pan-Africanism?
Okay, okay. This time I remembered the mic. So I just like Tatenda, I had to go back and really try to think deep about it, because it's an ocean, right? And really at the center of it, you have this idea of unity, absolutely. But then I am going to define it with respect to 3 questions of a political art. I got this from my Dr. John Langton back at Westminster College. And the 3 questions are very simple. And you start off by saying, what is the case currently? What ought to be the case? And then you say, what ought to be done to get us from what is the case to what ought to be the case? So I then see Pan-Africanism as the idea that it is impossible for the African to realize the best possible case, right? What ought to be, without a sense of a collective effort, right? The idea that we depend on each other to get to the best possible outcome, right? So that would be my definition of Pan-Africanism with respect to those 3 questions, really. And that'll be it, quite briefly.
Okay, thank you very much. Depending on each other. Okay, thank you very much. It seems that unity is the center stage when it comes to Pan-Africanism. Now, my second question to the panelists is up to date. How has Pan-Africanism been manifested in the lives of ordinary Africans, especially the youth? Chanju, what's your take on this? How has Pan-Africanism manifested in the lives of us Africans, especially us, the youth?
All right. You see that since its genesis, there's no one direction. So there's always a debate in terms of, since there are issues to do with sovereignty, we always feel like I belong to Malawi, the other person belongs to Zimbabwe, and another person belongs to Eswatini. So that still divides us. That the borders, the demarcations, it still divides us to the extent that as the youth, we don't really work together, we don't really collaborate, we don't really come together to share ideas. Maybe it's only now of recent times where we have seen, I'll give an example of African music. We have seen now the African music influencing a lot on the global scale, and we have seen a lot of collaborations within Africa. And now that's the positive side of being Pan-Africanism, because as Africans, we're coming together, create something we can sell out there to the world. And we can make a lot of lives change out of that. But on the flip side, you see that there's still segregation. There's still, we still feel like from a different country. I don't need to do this with another foreigner. You call a fellow African a foreigner. So those jurisdictions bring a lot of limitations in terms of how much we could achieve if we had all come together as the youth, create things we can sell and showcase out there. So in a nutshell, that's what I can say, that Pan-Africanism, in terms of the youth to date, that's how it's affecting us. Back to you, Stanley.
Thank you very much. So in a nutshell, Chanju, you said that Pan-Africanism as the youth has made us come together as the youth. And there's also segregation happening, even though we claim to be Pan-Africanists. Zito, what's your take on this?
Okay. Well, where do I begin here? Well, it's a big continent, and I got a sense of being on the continent on the ground and also being outside of the continent, partly in the diaspora. And thing is, when you're looking at it from there, when you look at the continent, you look at home from outside. It's a very different picture altogether. Now that helps sort of expand one's understanding to some extent, right? But you can never really fully understand it. Now, for young people, one thing that is clear throughout is that we seem to share the same experience. And I think that's maybe the number one thing that made people realize in the first place that we have to come together, because the sort of challenges that we face, they are somewhat, they seem to have eyes, right? They can see the color of your skin wherever you are on the face of the planet. Now, I had never experienced racism while in the country, but I had seen that some people would have certain preferences over others. But me going outside, I'm living both in Europe or Scandinavia for quite some time, and then in the US, and I saw that we are sharing a kind of experience here, right? And maybe that's the thing that is, till this day is making sense in the minds of a lot of folks, to say that we have to stay united in a sense because of this. But also, the idea of Africa itself, me being an African, it's somewhat, there's an argument to be made that it is somewhat foreign, right? That the countries that we live in today, I mean, I'm Swati, and I'm proud of that. Although my parents came from Mozambique, I was born and raised here, so I'm Swati in that sense. But I'm proud of that. At the same time, there's the idea that whose perspective was it that gave the idea, that gave birth to the notion that we as a collective are today identify as an African people, right? And one could argue that it wasn't the people within the continent who were looking at themselves and saying, we are African. They were probably being whoever they were, speaking many different languages and so forth. But somebody from the outside looked at the continent and said, they share something, right? And they are to be treated in a certain way. And I think that we see this continue to happen today. So I always look at this, the idea of Pan-Africanism with a certain degree of caution also, because what is it that is it the fact that I'm reacting to external forces that I'm not, happy with, or it is because I inherently, really feel that this is who I am, this is who I belong, and that is my brother and that's my sister in a sense. So there's a question, what drives it, right? But I think that till this day, we have that thing, which I just wanted to bring to the table, that there's this thing that we share. And there's a question around what really drives it, what motivates it, for me. And that is a continuous manifestation that I have no answer briefly. Back to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Tatenda, I saw you nodding to Zito's assertions. Do you want to add anything to that? Or would you like to answer my question?
All right. Thank you very much, Stanley. Honestly, it's everything. I am in full agreement with everything that our panelists have said. And I do have quite a bit that I too want to share. I think as Zito, I also share that experience of first going out of Zimbabwe, being a United World College scholar myself, studying in Bosnia and then coming to the United States. And then for the first time, really, I guess, embracing my cultural identity, embracing that I'm a Black African female and having that defined for what it is. And to be honest, you know, when we're back home, we take our cultural identity for granted because we've been brought up in it. And sometimes it feels as if our parents might be forcing it down our throats, right? Until we're taken out of that situation or out of that context and then realize that, no, this is who I am. This is who I identify as. This is something that has shaped who I am as a person, my morals, my beliefs, and how I interact with the world and how I want to show up. So I definitely agree with everything that Zito said in regards to the sense of identity, that, you know, if we look at the Pan-Africanism movement in itself, it did not start with us as Africans, right? It started from the diaspora, right? And then, of course, it kind of got adapted by Africans and we're like, okay, this is something that might be working for us. So just seeing that disparity, that this was not a desire that essentially came from the continent, I think is very questionable. And I found it very interesting that this is something that is very questionable on its own, that have we ever regarded each other as one? You know, us as Africans, have we seen each other as one? Have we seen each other as brother and sister? Have we actually wanted to unite and want the same thing for my fellow Africans, you know? And then we look at just everything that has been going on the continent, from the xenophobic attacks to the EndSARS, the civil wars and so Somalia and all over the continent. And we then question that, is this something that we want to have, or does this remain an ideology? Does this remain an ideal cause? Does this remain an idea that our founding fathers had, but that we have never understood? So what I'm seeing currently in this generation, I guess with Gen Z and the millennials, is a resurgence, an awakening of, hey, by the way, we're Africans. Hey, by the way, we're brothers and sisters. And I would want to relate this to the Black Lives Matter. We saw what happened in America, like the world kind of stood still and looked at America last year. And then that kind of, you know, gave hope to other Africans as well. And I want to believe that it motivated the EndSARS in Nigeria, and also, like, you know, people standing up to police brutality across the continent. So we're kind of starting to go back to where we started, that we're trying to unite Africans in the diaspora and Africans on the continent with the sense of oneness, with the sense of identity. But because of westernization and because of just general divisions brought about by cultural differences or religious differences, it's been very difficult to bring people together and really adopt and, you know, like carry the ideologies of Pan-Africanism. So in a nutshell, and honestly in my thoughts, I think that Pan-Africanism remains an ideology that is yet to fully manifest as a reality. So I will give the floor back to you, Stanley. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tatenda. Very fiery, very lively. Is Kutemba, is she online? Do you have anything to add on that? Kutemba, we haven't heard anything from you. Okay, so
okay.
Okay.
Sorry, my network is pretty bad over here.
Oh, sorry for that. Is that Airtel Zambia?
Yeah, no, it's not Airtel Zambia, it's Zambia Zambia.
Okay, so so we were talking about Pan-Africanism, and up to date, how has Pan-Africanism been manifested in the lives of ordinary Africans, especially the youth? Would you like to add anything on that?
I guess today Pan-Africanism can be seen on how the youths are able to fight against racism. We can see how united the youths are when it comes to fighting racism. We can see it in the diaspora when we had George Floyd, who was recently brutally killed. We could see it how the youths could stand and speak about that. We can see it how also the youths were able to come together and fight the injustices that were being brought in by the police in Nigeria. Even though sometimes again, the youths again, it's like they don't. We may talk about unity, but it's like we lack that unity again as Africans, because we can see how the youths are able to look down on each other, to look down on their neighbor, to attack. They're so quick to attack their neighbor. They're so quick to attack, to label their neighbor as foreign. For example, we can talk about the xenophobia attacks that happened in South Africa recently, recently. We could see how the youths in South Africa were able to kill others, to loot their brother's business. Why? And then when you see that, you question yourself to say, honestly, are we really brothers? Like, do we really speak the same voice? So, okay, it's like we haven't fully embraced Pan-Africanism as Africans. We still have a long way to go, but I guess we're in the process of embracing everything. Yeah, we just need time. That's what I can say about it.
Okay, thank you very much. We saw Kutemba says that we haven't fully embraced Pan-Africanism. I'm getting communication that this meeting will end in 7 minutes time. Bongani has shared a link to the new meeting. Apparently Zoom meetings last for 40 minutes. Okay, so the new link has been pasted in the group chat. So when this meeting ends, you might want to click into the new meeting. Apologies for that. Apologies. So, okay. Before this meeting ends, is it possible to get a question? One question from the audience. A question. Does anybody have a question that they would like to ask the panelists?
I think there's a question in the chat.
Okay.
From
the question.
Jennifer Nguira.
Okay, Jennifer Nguira. Jennifer is asking, as African youths, what is it that we should do differently to ensure that we promote togetherness in our continent despite living in different countries?
Can I take that on, please?
Yes, please, sir.
All right, thank you. So, yeah, show me the different from togetherness. There's something that I observed. I have attended a lot of conferences, right? Different universities, cities, whatever. And what I've noticed is that we do a very good job talking about what is happening to us right now, what is the case, and we do a good job talking about what had to happen, what had to be the case for the African. So it seems to me that there is an understanding, and in fact, it is quite difficult. It's becoming difficult to attend any forum and come out saying, you know, today I've learned something new, something I didn't know before, right? And that it tells me that we're at a point where we clearly know what's right, what needs to be done, and how winning looks like for the African. The thing that I think we have to do differently now is to say, how do we build something I call communities of value, right? And this is when we bring in people with, expert know-how to work in a synergistic way to solve hard problems for the continent, right? So if we could build those, and really try to capitalize on many of the opportunities or things that are now happening on the continent. We have the free trade area now throughout, and this is a plus, right? We have things such as the African passport. How do we throughout the continent. So if we were to build, young folks, I mean, a question is specific to young people. If we were to say, let us build a huge community throughout the continent, figure out and have folks within the different countries try to figure out what is the need, what is the demand in Zimbabwe, right? What is it that the local economy needs? And how do we have such a surplus in the Swati economy, for example? And how can we then build channels that will allow us to create jobs, right? Not just talk about it, but now let's create jobs. Let's create jobs for our young folks in our countries, and also build a network infrastructure throughout the continent, right? Because the market is huge. We keep on importing from other countries, from Western countries, so for things that we're perfectly able to grow in the continent. I know, for example, in my own country, I was submitting a proposal not long ago to the National Agriculture Board in the country. And it turns out that we are actually importing a lot more food from South Africa as Swati people, food that we can, be able to grow because we have so much arable land. And it's true that the continent has close towards 70% of arable land throughout the world, but we still import it from outside, which is frankly ridiculous, right? So I think that's one thing that we can do differently. Let us build these communities of value throughout the continent. We've done enough talking, but we still need to talk because we need to share ideas. I think it's a beautiful thing that we have so many of us spread through all over the world. That is a good thing because then we get to learn and observe what other countries are doing. But now, can we then bring some of that intelligence, though, right, so that we can make good use of it? So that would be my answer to my take to it. Back to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Zito. Zito has said that let us build a young community that answers the tough questions. Action, action, action. George had a question. You raised your hand, George. George?
Thank you very much, Stanley. First, I want to say thank you to all the participants. I'm sorry I can't put my camera on. I'm in a very tight place, but this has been quite an interesting conversation, and I want to say a special shout out to my friend and Tatenda. She has been amazing in her analysis, and discussion. Yeah, so my question relates, just pivot back to what Zito just talked about. Oh, by the way, I'm from Sierra Leone, so I notice a lot of South and East Africans within the midst. But I'm from Sierra Leone, West Africa. I'm currently in America. My question has to do with the impact that most of you guys have talked about. Tatenda